Welcome in to Believe in Eagles. We're actually surprisingly not talking about the Boston College Eagles, as you might think if you're tuning in, but we're talking about the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm your host, Leigh Mayock, and in here with us again this week is my dad, Mike Mayock. Hi, Dad.
Hello, dear. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm good.
So I feel like it feels like it was so long ago, but we haven't talked about the Eagles-Packers game yet. You called the game. It was a little for Westwood One radio, but it was a little different because you weren't in Brazil. So you were down the street from me at Lincoln Financial Field calling the game. How was it?
It was great because I got to work with Scotty Graham.
Nice.
And Scott and I used to do the Eagles preseason games together before I took the Raider job. And I think he's one of the most competent people I've ever been around. And whenever he and I get to do a game or talk football, we always have a good time. So the only weird thing was kind of sitting in, the visiting coaches box at the link with two huge televisions blocking the view of the field so that we could watch the game and call it.
Wait, could you hear? Didn't the Eagles also have a watch party at the link?
Yeah, they had a bunch of people down on the field and going through the locker room, and we could hear them a little bit, but we got our headsets on, and really what I want to hear is a little bit more of the crowd noise in Brazil, and as opposed to what it is at the link.
So then, when you're watching that game on the feed on a television, you're just watching the game with no sound. Well, no, you said you could hear the crowd. So what was the setup?
Well, you've got an audio feed a little in your ear.
Okay.
Okay, so you can hear some of that from Brazil, and you've got two huge TVs. One is in all 22.
Okay.
So that I can see the whole field.
Was that easier for you than when you're watching the game in person? Just in terms of the all 22?
No.
Okay.
You don't get the same feel.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm watching it in person, which I'd much rather do, except for the 10-hour flight to and from Brazil, but I can kind of target where I want to look on a play. If I'm interested in watching, it's a passing play, and I think the Eagles are going to throw it to Devontae Smith. Are they doubling them? Are they not? I like to get a feel for that with my own eyes.
Okay.
So,
you know what I was thinking about it more so like the setup because it was a little different for you guys, obviously not being there. But I was especially thinking about it because I feel like magnifying glasses were on Tom Brady and his first game broadcast. And I think it opened a lot of people's eyes into how difficult that job actually is.
I don't know. I didn't really hear Tom do the game because I was scooting around to several games on Sunday.
Okay.
So I was paying attention to several games. And if I'm going to listen to an analyst, for instance, I love listening to certain, like if I watch Troy Aikman call a game, mm-hmm. I feel like I get a really good view through the prism of a former quarterback's eyes. And he's done it for a lot of years. He's really good at it. I enjoy watching him. I enjoy Greg Olsen.
Yep, he's great. Yeah.
I thought he was one of the few guys that kind of came out of playing and jumped right into broadcasting and did it at a high level. And so I didn't really get a chance to see much of Tom. I think some people take to it really naturally.
Yeah.
But like anything, to be good at something, you need reps. And I know he knows the game, and he'll keep working at it.
I mean, no, he'll obviously be the top level of it if he doesn't unretire and go play football again. But it just made, I actually genuinely felt like, oh, wow, like my dad's better at this than I thought.
I'm not really sure where to go with
It's a compliment. It's a compliment.
It didn't sound like one.
It was. I think it is. You make, to me, like, I've heard you do this for so long. It made me, like, you make it sound kind of easy. And I feel like that's a compliment. But anyway.
I mean, I grew up with your grandfather. So.
Coach's son in the house.
Yeah. And so to me, football's second nature. But so it is to Tom Brady, and he'll be fine. And again, I didn't even see him do the game.
No, so I know. And I honestly thought for his first game, he was great. Everything he had to say was so like insightful and poignant, as everyone would know. But it's just like the little things like timing of stuff and cadence of when you're speaking and not overlapping your, mm-hmm. But yeah. So anyway, that was like kind of a backhanded compliment to you.
Oh, well, I guess. Thank you.
What else about the game? Did they have food for you guys?
Yeah, I had a cheesesteak before the game, and it was pretty good. And
Wait,
you know
I
me,
like that. They set the tone. Yeah, for Philly.
yeah, had a couple snacks and a couple of waters. I was good to go.
The other thing is, during breaks and like halftime, are you still talking about football, like with Scotty, or like what are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, basically, I'm going to go hit the head.
The
You
bathroom?
know, yeah, hit the bathroom. That's what everybody does. And after a couple hours of, so you run in the bathroom, you grab something to eat, you get another coffee or water or whatever, and you go back and you grab Scotty and our producer Mike Eby and say, okay, how much time do we have left, and what are we talking about coming out of the break, heading into the game, and are there any sponsored elements? Are we going to talk statistics? Do you want my feeling of the first half or what I expect in the second half? And if you do, how much time do we have?
Got you.
So
So pretty
it's just
straightforward.
a couple of minutes getting a game plan together and going.
That reminds me of when you used to do the draft, and I would be there, and I would catch you out of the corner of my eye, like leaving the stage, like scurrying. And at first I was like, "What's wrong?" And then I realized it was just your bathroom break.
I mean, you sit in that stage for about 10 hours a day for 3 days, and just like the combine. It's like I gotta know where the bathroom is, and I'm
You need a
sprinting.
direct route to the bathroom.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
speaking of routes, um, the Packers versus Eagles game.
yeah.
What did you think? It wasn't what we were expecting. A little, I think Eagles fans were taken aback at first. It was kind of a crazy couple of first possessions, first half, even maybe you would say. But so, what did you think?
You know, I thought it was sloppy early, both because of the field
Mm-hmm.
conditions, which were awful, and I thought embarrassing for the NFL. I did a game in Germany a couple of years ago with the same situation, and I was down on the field. I think it was a Berlin game. I was down on the field before the game, and all the players were changing cleats and trying to figure it out. And
So, is
big
that what
clumps.
you do as a player when you're on that field and you're just slipping and sliding around? What can you do to rectify that? How do you help yourself?
Yeah, there are two things. One is footwear and your choice of cleat.
Hmm.
And if you watched the game the other night, you could see players on both sidelines were getting cleats unscrewed and longer ones
Yeah.
put in. And that was going on the sideline. And then, especially the skill position guys have to figure out how to kind of gather before making any big cuts. And I felt badly for those guys because they were, I mean, wide receivers were sticking their foot in the ground, sliding. A couple of times it made the quarterback look like they were inaccurate, which what they weren't. It was just a wide out falling. But I just thought for the NFL, it's a bad look, and it's something that shouldn't happen down the road.
Yeah, I honestly, it was so sloppy, and it was like it could have been such a better game to watch, and a lot of people were saying that just because the teams were very like well matched, and it was everyone was ready for it, excited to watch, and I was nervous every time someone took a step or pivoted. I was like sloppy
No, it's
slob fest.
yeah, and even the quarterbacks hitting their drop step, their back foot where they plant,
What are you supposed to do? Yeah,
that their foot sliding out a little bit. Now both teams had to
of
adjust.
course. Yeah.
And ultimately, we had a good football game. But
Hmm.
I mean, to get back to what you asked me a minute ago, as far as the game itself, um, I think a couple of things. I think you have to give Vic Fangio and the defense credit for after the offense turned the ball over 2 times in a row on the plus 19 and the plus 13 yard
Yeah.
line. The Eagles defense held them to field
Hmm.
goals. And you and I talked the last week or two about how bad the Eagles were last year,
Right.
right? And that Tampa Bay wild card playoff game, how bad that was. If and what I was thinking after Jalen Hurts had the second turnover and the offense is jogging to the sideline is, where's this thing going now? Are all the players in their minds going to revert back to last year,
Yep.
or is there an ability to steady the ship internally with both the coaches and the leaders?
Hmm.
So what I think I learned and liked about the Eagles the other day is that I thought Vic did a great job with the defense. Because remember, he only had one defensive starter returning from that wild card playoff game in Slay.
Yeah.
He's the 6 new starters on the back 7, right? So the front guys were similar, but on the back seven, only one starter.
Yep.
And they shut them down. They kicked field goals. And then the offense comes out and scores a touchdown with Saquon Barkley.
Yep. That was
On an
so
18-yard pass.
exciting.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, this is kind of props to Kellen Moore.
Mm-hmm.
So bad interception, bad fumble, you're looking awful. You get a good drive, and at the end of it, the play that was called, it's kind of called a trick 'em play. It's not like Jalen dropping back to pass and reading progressions. It was specifically designed to get Saquon Barkley the ball in space against the linebacker. And so it was the offensive coordinator calling the right play at the right time. And then, to your Penn State guys' benefit,
Executed.
I mean, he had a linebacker on one side, a safety on the other. He had to go up and catch it and get 2 feet in bounds. And it's a very small group of running backs that can make that play like he did.
Yeah, and kind of like I was saying about you, how it made me think you make your job look easy when you're calling games. To me, he made the running back position look easy. And clearly I can get there into the end zone at any time anyway, with just a few steps. But it blew my mind, and it made me realize what I was like, oh, this is what everyone was talking about preseason. They said there was a bunch of times during preseason when he would just explode, and people were like, whoa.
I mean, basically, if he stays healthy, and that's been a big question in his career, his rookie year was his most healthy year, and it was also his most productive year. If he stays healthy behind a good offensive line and a good football team, he's going to be explosive all year long.
It's awesome. That was so fun to watch. Yep. And then just in terms of positives and negatives you saw otherwise out of the offense.
Yeah, I mean, you start with the quarterback. Mm-hmm. Last year he had 20 turnovers. That was the 4th most in the NFL. The year before, I think he had 6.
Okay.
8. I forget what the number was, but
not even double digits. Yeah.
The key is that he can't turn the football over. And then you come out the first 2 series, bad interception, and then that exchange, I think, was Cam Jurgens' fault.
Okay. Well, yeah. And that's what we had talked about too last week, is like that relationship and that chemistry, because Jalen's going to have to take a lot more of ownership and leadership of that situation, because Jason Kelce had it prior, right?
Yeah, and I think he did. I think they had 2 fumbled exchanges, one on a shotgun, and they lost the ball. And the other was at the end of the game, which could have cost them when they were going to do the tush-push under center, and he fumbled it again, and Barkley fell on the fumble.
Yeah.
So that has to get cleaned up. But my point about Jalen is this. He threw 2 interceptions. Mm-hmm. The Packers dropped 2 more interceptions.
Yeah.
Okay. They had the fumbled exchanges. He needs to play a lot more cleanly, and he needs to clean up those decisions. The first interception, he was late, and the backside safety picked it off.
Is that when he threw it straight, like over the middle from?
Yeah, it was the first series of the game.
Okay, yeah.
And he tried to hit Devontae Smith down the seam.
Right.
Over a linebacker, and the backside safety, Xavier McKinney, he made a nice play, but he did that 3 times last year. Same kind of look with the backside safety. Okay. So it makes me nervous. And then the second interception late in the game was awful. And it was a 2-play sequence, one where he threw it in the flat and Keyshawn Nixon dropped a pick 6. Mm-hmm. And then the next play, he threw an awful interception, which cost him a field goal. And they had a 5-point lead. A field goal puts them up 8, which is a big difference. So situational football-wise, he can't make that throw. So he made some bad decisions, some bad throws, but that's the negative. Mm-hmm. The positive is he also made some big-time throws. Yeah. The 67-yard touchdown to AJ, the 18-yard touchdown to Saquon. He ran the ball on scrambles on the last drive when they kept the ball alive and kept it away from Green Bay. A couple really good scrambles for first downs. So the challenge, I think, for the Eagles and Jalen is to clean up the bad stuff and keep the good stuff. And I think he's got the kind of mentality that he's capable of that.
How much do you think those like little mistakes and situational football mistakes could be attributed to the fact that this is the first time the offense is playing together as starters?
Jalen's in his 5th year. I think Jalen should know better on some of those throws, particularly. Okay. I thought he did a great job with the 2 wideouts. A.J. Brown had over 100 yards catching. The guy I'm falling in love with is Devontae Smith.
Yeah.
He's 170 pounds, and pound for pound, he might be the toughest guy in the league.
He's awesome. Oh my God. He got me hyped up.
He catches everything in traffic, and he's tough. And so those guys I don't worry about. And they got to clean up Juergens and the quarterback like we talked about. The rest of the offensive line I thought played very well. I thought the left guard, Landon Dickerson, maybe didn't have his best game. He got pushed back into Jalen a few times. But as a group, they're going to be really good. So I think they've got a chance to be really, really good and on offense. They've got to clean up. Here's the deal, Leigh. They were -2 in turnover differential. Okay. You hardly ever win a game in the NFL when you turn the ball over 2 times more than your opponent. Okay? So that they got to clean that up. And I'm kind of also encouraged by Kellen Moore. I thought he did a great job play calling.
I know, and that was a big question mark in your mind too.
Well, he just has to get Jalen playing at a level and the offense playing at a level. And, they scored 34 points after an awful start. So give them some credit.
Do you know that they called the tush push the Brazilian butt lift? Isn't that funny?
I didn't know that. It's a little cute.
All right. But so, look, I guess looking ahead to Monday Night Football now, we got the Falcons in Philly at the Link. Are you calling that one?
No.
Do you have a game next week?
I don't have a game next week. Okay.
So
and then next week is BCOC.
Oh, the BC Bash, back at it again. Yeah. That's so fun. Yes. How many of you are going? Your old teammates?
We've got 11 of our 12 guys, and the only guy we don't have is my roommate who passed away this winter.
Yep.
And is our best friend, Danny Conway, and we all love him. And we're going to find a couple ways to pay tribute to him over 1,000 beers and a few glasses of red wine.
I was going to say, I'm sure a lot of those tributes are going to be beers, as you would want it to be.
Yeah. So we have a great group of guys, as you know, and we have a lot of fun, and we lie about how good we used to be. And
you put the highlight tapes on.
And that Saturday night, BC's playing Michigan State in prime time, so we'll be.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah.
And
so anyway,
and it's
back to the Eagles.
Perfect weather too, by the way.
Yeah.
You know that?
Yeah.
Okay, back to the other Eagles. Monday Night Football. We're going up against Kirk Cousins and the Atlanta Falcons. What are you expecting to see?
I think the Falcons are going to be a little bit desperate. I mean, they just lost a game to the Steelers, 18-10.
Zero touchdowns.
Yeah, Pittsburgh kicked 6 field goals.
Yeah,
so
crazy.
I mean, how do you want to look at that? On the one hand, Atlanta's defense was pretty stout.
Right.
And they are pretty stout. And they signed 2 veteran NFL guys in the last month that are going to help them. Matt Judon from New England and Simmons, the safety that played in Denver, a BC guy. Those 2 guys are really good football players. They got one of the best defensive tackles in the league who's coming off an injury, who I think had a sack and a half in the game the other day, Grady Jarrett. So defensively, I think they're pretty stout. The questions are on offense a little bit, and Cousins is coming off a major injury, didn't play well, 2 interceptions, but they've got some really good skill position guys. I mean, you got to play Drake London, the wideout, Kyle Pitts, the tight end, and Bijan Robinson, the running back, are really good.
Yeah.
And the left side of their O-line is good. Where the Eagles have to kind of take advantage is Caleb McGarry, the right tackle, struggles in pass protection.
Okay.
So guys like Nolan Smith and Huff probably need to step up and be a little bit more apparent this weekend than they were last weekend.
And exploit that.
Yeah. There you go.
Not extort. Exploit.
Yes, exploit, not extort.
So already, which is again, like I just think that week one, I cannot stand people's overreactions to things. It just blows my mind. And actually, Rich Eisen said something really smart. I thought this week he was like, people need to stop treating, or people need to start understanding that week one is an extension of preseason, basically, instead of
And
looking
that's
at
true.
it like the
Yep.
what's going to determine the Super Bowl, right? Um,
I Yeah, I look at the first 3 or 4 games as sloppy, a lot of penalties, trying to figure out who you are
yeah,
identity wise on both sides of the ball. Who are you going to play? What kind of role are the rookies going to play? What used to happen in preseason, the Rich's point, is now happening the first month of the season.
right. So a lot of people's overreaction on Sunday was about Kirk Cousins coming off the injury, not looking that great. Everyone's like, "Are we putting Michael Penix Jr. in already?" What do you think's going on in that quarterback circumstances?
I I'm in the minority, Leigh, on the Michael Penix thing. I liked his tape to start with,
Mm-hmm.
and while the Falcons got crucified for using the 8th overall pick in the draft on Michael Penix when they had just signed Kirk Cousins to a big contract, I thought that's really cool. That's an organization that's taking a step back, knowing they're going to take heat from their fan base, and they're saying we're going to be really intentional about the quality of our quarterback play for the next 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
And the way we're going to do that is draft a guy at number 8 that we think can play after we get a couple years out of Kirk Cousins. So for the Falcons, they're hoping they get two good years out of Kirk. The guaranteed money runs out after year 2, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
So they could pivot to Michael Penix in year 3. And there aren't a whole lot of teams, Leigh, that intentionally make long-term decisions at quarterback, yet it's the most important position in all sports.
So would you say that Green Bay Packers did that with Jordan Love?
100%.
Mm-hmm.
And Brian Gutekunst, their GM, took a ton of heat. Nobody knew who Jordan Love was when they took him at like 24, 26, wherever they took him late in the first round, and they traded up to get him. It was intentional. They wanted a quarterback because they didn't know how long Aaron Rodgers was going to last, and they wanted to develop an insurance policy, and they were willing to invest a first-round pick to do it.
Okay, to me that sounds like the most logical thing you can do, and like a huge priority. And I thought that teams used to do that. Is that wrong? Is this a new phenomenon, or what do you?
Well, teams will draft a mid-round or a late-round quarterback, and a lot of teams, like San Francisco, they might draft a late-round guy almost every year.
Hmm.
And they hit pay dirt with Brock Purdy.
Yeah.
So in the same draft, they take Trey Lance and trade up and give away a boatload of people to go get Trey Lance in the first round from North Dakota State. And in the 7th round, Mr. Irrelevant is Brock Purdy. Trey Lance ends up being a bust to this point and is a third-string quarterback in Dallas. But Brock Purdy's become a potential franchise quarterback in the 7th round. So
Mr. Relevant.
Mr. Irrelevant is now relevant.
He's
That's
now
right.
relevant.
And,
there you go. Nicely done.
yeah. And I give Atlanta a ton of credit for taking Penix.
But so you don't think that it's a quarterback conversation yet, though, in terms
No,
of
I don't.
chart. Okay.
I think Cousins was a little rough. I don't know how hard he pushed that Achilles, prior to last week. And that's a hard injury at his age to come off of. So at the end of the day, I think you're going to see Kirk Cousins. And I think you're going to get the best effort you can get from Atlanta because they lost a game against Pittsburgh. They're at Philly on a Monday night. And then on a short week, they got to play Kansas City.
Oof.
So if they don't win Monday night, there's a good chance they start 0-3. And 0-3 kind of dooms you to any playoff conversation.
And especially, yeah, I wouldn't, you know what sounds like doom to me? 0-2 and going to face the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah.
That sounds like doomsday as well.
You're going to get their best out.
So just in terms of just a couple quick keys to the game for the Eagles, facing.
Yeah, I think it's more about the Eagles, to be honest with you, than how they. I mean, on offense, we talked about how they have to clean up the turnovers.
Yeah.
And the penalties. I thought they individually, most of their offensive players played very well, but they can't turn the football over, and that starts with Jalen Hurts They've got to win the turnover battle. So offensively, don't turn the ball over. Keep being diverse. Run the football. See what they give you with Saquon Barkley. Um, I'd love to see them develop over time Jahan Dotson, who didn't do much the other night. But I think to have an effective number 3 receiver is important.
Mm-hmm.
So offensively, that's what I think. They just spread the ball around, try to keep running the football, take care of the football. On defense, they gave up 5 chunk run plays over 14 yards, including a 22-yarder, a 32-yarder, a 33-yarder, and they gave up 5 chunk pass plays. And in the Vic Fangio defensive scheme, he doesn't usually give up those kinds of chunks. Okay?
Yeah, these are a lot of chunks.
A lot of chunks. 10 chunks. Bad.
A lot of chunks.
It's a lot of chunks. But we talked about Vic had all those new starters on the defensive side of the ball.
Yep.
And I'm a big believer in Vic, and I think he'll get it all worked out. He'll figure out who the right people are, like the rookie Quinyon Mitchell.
Quinyon Mitchell. They targeted him so much at first in the Packers game continuously, and he had an answer for almost everything. And he was so confident about it too. I was like, that is a Philadelphia Eagle.
Yeah, I think you're right. And since the day he stepped in the building, it hasn't been too big for him.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think he'll stay outside. I think they're going to try to figure out how and when to get Cooper DeJean more involved, the second-round pick, because one of the players who I don't think played very well was the starting nickel, Avante Maddox.
Okay.
And I think they're going to be I'm guessing they're going to be looking to get the second-round pick, DeJean, in there as soon as they can. Mm-hmm. And they've got to figure out their front 4 rotations also. The big fella from Georgia, Jalen Carter, played about 75% of the snaps and got double teamed on most of them. That's a lot of snaps. The other kid from Georgia played about half the snaps. He's got to be better against the run. And I think when he's fresh, when his legs are fresh,
Jordan
he's
Davis,
really
is
good.
that who you're talking about?
Yeah, Jordan. When he's fresh and his legs are good, he is stout against the run. When he starts to lose his conditioning, he stands up tall and gets moved.
Okay.
So I think Zach Bond played his tail off.
That's what I know. I was forgetting someone. Zachy B, that's your guy. You've been talking about him all preseason, and he showed out. Oh my gosh, he was so impressive.
Strong, smart, instinctive, tough player. Nakobe Dean had his ups and downs. I loved Vic coming out. I think it was yesterday or today and saying, "Hey, whether Devin White comes back or not, Nakobe Dean's my starter."
Right.
So
no question there.
Yeah, so he's going to keep playing him. So
Reed Blankenship was great too.
I think he's a steadying influence, and they didn't have him with injury at the end of last year. So he played well. I agree with that. It was good to have C.J. Gardner-Johnson back. Yeah. He missed 2 or 3 tackles, and he's got to clean some of that up, but he's a presence on the back end.
I feel like he's everywhere. Like I just thought he shoots around everywhere, and I'm like, you're covering a lot of ground, and I appreciate that.
Yeah. Yep, you're right.
But all right, what's your prediction for the game? Are we getting a prediction from you?
No.
You did last time. Nick Saban did
it. I like the Eagles this week. I think if they clean their game up from last week with the turnovers, that ultimately they win the game. Yeah.
Okay, well, my gift to you this week is that I'm not going to ask you or tell you anything about pop culture. So we're going to leave it at that.
Wow. Thank you.
You're welcome. I know. I complimented you today too.
Sort of. Yeah, you weren't as bad as I thought you were, Dad.
Well, thanks for being here. Have fun with your buddies this weekend. And
next weekend.
Okay, so I'll talk to you then. But I'll talk to you later. Thanks, Daddy.
All right, sweet. See ya.
Bye.
Bye-bye.